You're listening to Adopter Stories by the Adoption and Fostering Podcast. In this episode, Alex shares her story of adopting a little boy after being his specialist foster carer.
The reason why I adopted started, I think, 6 years before the adopt, with fostering the young man who came to live with me, and he's now a very big man. He came to live with me when he was 6 years old. I started fostering when I was 30, and that really started when, having had quite a nomadic 20s, I settled and I bought a home, and I had this crazy idea in my head as I was buying a home that part of that was going to mean that I would settle and I would create this home for foster children to come and stay in. I think I had quite unrealistic ideas of what that was going to look like. I think mainly based around Home and Away and Pippa and the foster carer in Home and Away. And it was going to be this house that I filled with life and teenagers, I guess, was my idea, because I had been a youth worker. So after I bought my home, about 6 months later, I made the phone call to the recruitment service that we have in our area, and they quickly passed my details on to a secondary service who came round to visit me. And it was a new project that was starting in our area, which was a specialist service, therapeutic foster caring, based a lot around the PACE model, Dan Hughes. And they wanted to ask me to be, whether I would consider being part of this service. So it kind of looked like this in the end, homes where there weren't other children, birth children or adopted children or foster children, and the foster carers were going to kind of have some experience coming from a therapeutic background or a teaching background, but they were going to bring some of their own experience into foster caring, and they were going to give up their day-to-day jobs and become full-time foster carers. We were going to be sort of supported by this whole team of therapists and social workers, and the question was, would I be interested in doing that? So I thought, yeah, I would like that. That sounds like something that fits in with my ideas, although it was very different to my idea of what it was going to be when I went into it. Fitting in with this idea, I was going into fostering knowing that it would be a young person who would be coming to live with me for a while. I think originally the model was based on an idea of 2 years, and it would definitely be for a while, and there would be this dream that they would be able to work within this specialist service and move on and live within families longer term. So I really liked the idea, and I started fostering, and it was a really wonderful experience with great therapists and key workers and support. I mean, there was teething problems because we were a new service. Yeah, just working out new bits and bobs, but we were working as a team, so foster carers, social workers, therapists, all together, and I really liked it. The only problem was that my son came to live with us. He didn't have his care order, so he came to me prior to care proceedings. So I actually went through care proceedings with him, and all this trauma and the stress that goes with that, into foster care. and then eventually into adoption. He came to live with me, and I was very quickly in love with him a lot. Very quickly, very anxious about the whole court system and all that. So this is prior to us him even being a looked after child. So that was quite emotional. I had quite an emotional attachment to that. And then that happened, and then he came to live with me as a looked after child. So what that meant is this service that I was part of and he was part of could then really start to happen with the therapeutic intervention and stuff like that, which hadn't been able to really happen to begin with. And he was amazing. He really bought into it. Like, every idea you have with him, he would really buy into it. I would really buy into it. And I had a really lovely experience, actually, for the first couple of years of fostering. I really liked the team. And then a couple of years down the line, he had pretty amazing social worker who also was working very similar to us all, and we had one of those things, permanency planning or something meeting coming up. So she kind of spoke to me one day and she said, how comes we're not working towards permanency within your family? What's happening? And it was as simple as I financially couldn't afford to, because I'd given up work to be a full-time foster carer for my little boy. Not only did that mean I didn't have an employment salary coming in, but it also meant I'd put my career on hold, so to speak. And a couple of years down the line, I was relying on the income I was getting from the specialist fostering. So she said, so if we can sort that, then what would be your options? And the option would be that he would be with me forever. She fought for me under the section of the law that says a foster carer should not be financially penalised by adopting a child, which meant I could continue to receive the salary. And then the adoption was just ticking a box for me. Yeah, an easy question. That was the only thing stopping it from happening. So we went ahead with the adoption. Thought it was going to be a lot easier than it was in terms of the process of going from a foster carer to an adopted parent, in terms of like the legal process, which actually turned out to be really hard and really long. And I wasn't expecting that. A bit that had also come out of the permanency planning was happening at a time of an incredibly settled time in our life. I think we were about maybe 3-4 years into the therapeutic foster caring, and everything was going pretty fantastically in terms of we just had a real period of settled, in that we both, myself and my son, we also offered therapeutic emergency care for other children that were really suffering. And like, obviously I offered it, but it was we definitely lived in kind of a therapeutic household. He was definitely part of the process. And I was also able to start dating, and I'd met someone, and the adoption was going through. So out of a time of real stability came a time of a lot of change, because the adoption happened, and then my relationship sort of moved on and got more serious. And then just as the adoption was at its final stage is when I fell pregnant with my daughter. And at celebration hearing, I was about 3 months pregnant. Within a really short space of time, everything in our family changed. A newborn baby in the house, an adoption, and my partner moved in, and also my son was now 11 and he started secondary school. And so everything went into chaos at the same time. And that's where we've been at now. We're now 3.5 years on from that. When you're a foster carer, and I was a specialist foster carer, so I had not only all the things that a looked after child has around them, but I had the addition of therapeutic support for myself, my son, play therapy, social, like a fantastic service. Sometimes that's a bit of a struggle. Sometimes that is a bit hard, when you want to make decisions about the child that you love and better than anyone else on this planet. You have to have a room full of 12 people to make that decision, and you have to go through different things, and sometimes you get to a point where you can't make the decisions because of the law or because professionals involved in your child think differently to the way that you parent. And so one of the things about moving from fostering to adoption is that seems really good. Like you're taking that away, all those 12 people and those 12 hurdles and those emails and stuff, that just goes, and you just sit there and you make a choice about your child, and then you do what you need to do to make it happen. So that looks kind of good. And then as an adoptive parent, sometimes those 12 people in a room look really good. And you think, oh, I wish I had the backup of all those professionals, or, this is, at the end of today, it's just me sitting in a room trying to work out what I'm going to do. I don't have the people to bounce it off, but I don't have the access that I had, that fostering gave me, the easy access to just, I don't know, for example, just asking a professional to just write a letter, because, everyone loves a letter from a professional rather than me. My son is incredibly traumatized, and life as a child and as a teenager, and potentially for always, is going to be challenging for him because of the trauma he has experienced when he was tiny. And that's understandable. But what I have what I have had as a foster carer and as an adoptive parent is these little windows of hope, where we have these periods where everything's really, really settled, and we just kind of look like everyone else. Our family just kind of looks like everyone else's family. And my heart just runs away with me a little bit. And even though I'm clever enough to know that there's no cure and I didn't give him a pill, somehow my heart shouts louder than my head, and I have that window of hope, and then something happens, and I'm reminded that no, this is always going to be a challenge. We're always going to have challenges. That's what I find hard. Obviously, I find lots of things hard about living with a child who has such huge struggles, but it's like the highs make the lows worse. If every day was a challenge, you feel like you'd have some immunity to the challenge after a while. I'm sure you wouldn't. I'm sure I'm fantasizing about that. But it's those little windows of hope that come crashing down that I have found the most challenging. A little example, a couple of years ago when we were taking options for GCSE, and it's like, yeah, of course they'll do their GCSEs because we've just had, an amazing year. Of course they'll sit all their GCSEs. Like, why? Yeah, we have to choose all that. This is the teachers. So we have to, choose the GCSEs, and I'm away all of a sudden before I've even noticed it. I'm away. I'm back topping up the university fund, and 12 months down the line, that's not where we're at. Like we have to replan and we have to reconsider. But I remember, like, oh bugger, I thought we were going to university for that little bit of time. So that's been the challenge. So thinking about some of the highs of being a foster carer and a adoptive mum and a birth mum as well, is, I guess, a really complicated question, because every day is sort of like, it's a cliche, but every day is sort of amazing for me. But if I if I had to think of some of the highs, so as a foster carer to my son, a massive high was the first time he called me mummy, because obviously that was, I guess, when you adopt a child, there's some discussion around that. There's I guess there's discussion with the adoptive parents as well as the child about how that's going to work. Whereas when I was fostering my son, there isn't the discussion around it, and I guess there is sort of pushing away from social workers that the expectation isn't there, that you'd expect these children to call you mum or anything, or anything like that. So my son called me by my name for a long time, and then I feel like, as I'm really lucky that I can remember this moment. It was such a special moment. We went to the Tate Modern for the day, and we went to the Damien Hirst exhibition, and it was the butterfly exhibition. So it was when you walk through the rooms and everything. And then we came out and we walked over the Millennium Bridge, and I was telling him about how when it had first been put up, it moved, and and he held on to me and he called me mummy for the first time. And so I was really lucky that I've got that moment so perfectly in my head, because we were out and doing something special, although I'm sure it would have been special wherever. But I guess that's a massive high, because it was natural and I'd earned it. If that's, it sounds like a really wrong word to use, but like he had given it to me, not, he gave it to me, and that felt really special, and that was a massive high for me. Would I adopt or foster again? Yes, if the question is, would I have gone through my journey to get me to the family I have today? Yes, without question. And where our family will go? Yes, I will do that. Would I foster or adopt again? No, because our family works as it is. We don't need any more challenges in our life today. No. I don't know whether I'll foster or adopt in the future. I've got a 3-year-old birth daughter at the moment, and I like to think our family having foster children or adoptive children in it makes our family a kinder place and a better home for her. So I definitely wouldn't say never again. I feel like I'm young as well. So I feel like there's a lot of life in front of me where things could change. I found a lot about fostering very challenging, and I would find that very hard to find the energy to do again. And when I say that, I don't mean the children. I mean the system that's in place at the moment. And I find a lot about adoption very challenging. And again, I mean the system of trying to access support for children that have complex needs. I find that very challenging. And I'm blessed that I'm able to be a full-time mum to my children. But I do not know, I cannot imagine how adoptive parents or foster parents do it, with the added complication of having to earn money to keep their family going, and the extra of having, you know, all the additional stuff that you have to do to get your child's rights and needs met. So would I foster or adopt again? I don't know, but I know 100% I would do our journey again, to get to where we've got to. Yes.